Well, I'm speaking to a lot of business people out there, obviously a lot of small business people, and a lot of the time I hear about the roller coaster ride. So it's the roller coaster ride of leads, which is I've got no leads, I've got too many leads, I've got no leads, I've got too many leads. And you can imagine a roller coaster ride there. They're going up and down and up and down. And that can be jarring and it can be frustrating and it can actually take a lot of energy. Welcome to the Marketing Report. My name is Russell Pearson and this is episode number 79. The Marketing Report is a podcast for passionate yet frustrated business owners who are looking for a competitive edge. And today I'd like to talk about one of the things that gets in the way of business people going to market. They're a little confused as to who is that ideal customer. They're having trouble identifying which of these ideal whos they should be speaking to. And often what I find is that they're trying to push a sale onto someone who could very well be an ideal prospect for them, but hasn't been qualified yet, right? So the person could be the perfect ideal client for them for the future, but maybe even right now is not the right time. So I want to talk about a couple of things, but that's the guts of it. I want to be talking about prospects. How do you actually go about defining which of these ideal clients and which of these markets you should be speaking to at any one time? So the essence of where all this comes from. Well, I'm speaking to a lot of business people out there, obviously a lot of small business people, and a lot of the time I hear about the roller coaster ride. So it's the roller coaster ride of leads, which is I've got no leads, I've got too many leads, I've got no leads, I've got too many leads. And you can imagine a roller coaster ride there. They're going up and down and up and down. And that can be jarring and it can be frustrating. And it can actually take a lot of energy. And so whether it's the roller coaster ride where they've got inconsistent leads or where they've actually not got enough leads, and that could definitely be part of the issue. That's one of the things that I want to talk to prospects for today, is to solve that. So we don't want to just have not enough leads. We don't want to have inconsistent leads. What we want to have is that consistent flow of good traffic. So the consistent flow of opportunities, so that we're not having to always push so hard all the time. We can have a sort of consistent trickle. In the old days, I used to call it the flood of drips. There's multiple little things that we've got going where there's a drip of engagement coming from each of them. So you might have something like an email list. There's a drip of prospects coming through that. There's your online presence, or whether it be social media, your website, other things like that. There's some inquiry coming through that way. Maybe there's outreach that you're doing into the market, some drips of inquiry coming in that way. And so you might have each of these things deliver 1, 2, or 3 drips, but you might be getting like 30 sort of to 40 leads over the course of a month. Now, the question is, how many leads do you need? Well, you need as many leads as you need sales. And what I mean by that is do you know your conversion rate? If you do, you can work back to how many conversations you should be having. And if you know your conversion rate to getting a conversation, like a purposeful conversation, a conversation that's talking about a situation where you end up with a sale, then if you know what that number is, you know how many leads you need. Now, the interesting step between leads and prospects, and this is where a lot of people get confused, and that's really the topic of today. And so it's we don't have enough leads, or they're inconsistent. We want to get to consistent. We want to have this smooth, steady flow of traffic coming through, and not just any traffic, but ideal traffic. So you may have heard me say in the past, when it comes to looking at your ideal client, there's a couple of things that you want to be looking at. Number one is the basics, right? So your ideal prospect is going to be someone who will pay on time. I mean, client really, not prospect, because obviously you're working with them at this point. So they're going to pay on time. They're going to be easier to work with than other people. They're ideally going to take your advice if it's advice that you're giving. They're going to be someone who's not going to be too onerous. It's not going to steal too much energy. Now, that's the basics. I mean, most people say, yeah, that's the sort of customers I want, and even that is difficult to find. But usually that's because they haven't really focused in on the type of version of that client that they want. So there's some criteria with that as well. Number one is that they actually want the help that we can provide. They actually want what we've got. It's not that they need what we've got, because there's a lot of, especially startups in particular, will do this. They'll see a thing out in the world and they go, oh, I need to change that. I've got to fix that situation. And so they'll develop a product or a service to fix that situation. And it's what the world might need, but no one's actually wanting it. No one's putting up their hand and saying, yes, I want that solution. And so usually it doesn't get chosen, right? Because people will choose what they want. They won't choose what they need. They get forced to take what they need. So whether it's medicine, visiting the doctor, or any other number like tax, there's another one for you. There's a whole bunch of things that they will be forced to comply with. That's kind of the need side of things. But want, yeah, they want to buy a new motorcycle. They want to get a fancy dinner. They want to buy that new car. There's lots of things that they want to do. And ideally, you want to make sure that you're pitching whatever you've got into that want category. So when you're looking at your ideal prospect, do they want what you've got? And funny, sometimes it's actually that they do want what you've got, but they don't want the way you've just described it. So sometimes the thing that you've got is just not being offered correctly. It hasn't been actually set up to be positioned against a problem that they identify with. If they identify with a problem, then they will go, yes, I want a solution for it. And if your solution or your outcome, ideally, even better than a solution, is something that answers that problem, then they will usually want to get it solved and therefore engage with you. Right? So do they want it? That's a big one. Can they use it? Right? So there's some people who can't actually use the thing that you've got, whether it be a product or a service, just because of their circumstances. It might not be 100% right. Like let's say that, I don't know, you're a digital advertising company, and there's a small business over there that's also a digital advertising company. They don't need what you've got. Like it's they might have a problem if they need to get their ads right, but they're probably not going to choose you because they've really got the resources in house. So can they use what you've got? A lot of people can't necessarily use what you've got because of their current circumstances. I need a new car, or I want a new car, but I'm actually still paying off this last car. So unless you can make that easy to actually help the transition, then they're not in a position to say yes. So can they use or take the help that you're going to provide? Okay, that's number 2. Number 3 is, can they afford it? Can they afford to pay? Now, usually, most people can afford to pay for whatever problem it is. They'll find a way if the problem is great enough. If they perceive the value to be there, they will find a way to pay for it. Big borrow steal, but obviously we don't want people to steal. People will finance large hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not into the millions, to purchase a house, right? They want the house. Do they need the house? No, they could rent. Do they, does the bank feel bad about lending them that money and putting them in a situation where they might, they might spend $500,000 on a loan, or get a $500,000 loan, but in actual fact, they're going to be paying back, $800,000 to $1 million because of the interest payments. They want a thing. So how do you make it easy for them to get it? So when I say can they pay, usually it's a case of, is there value? Is there a value exchange there? So the example would be, let's say that you're providing services which should increase someone's income, all right, or their profitability. That's sort of the space I work in. If I'm going to charge a fee for that, and of course I do, I want to see my clients get at least 10 times return, if not better, on what we're talking about. So if I don't see a situation, let's say that there's a hobbyist business that comes and deals with me, and they say, well, I only want to get $40,000. Well, I'm not going to get them to join one of my programs because there's not a big enough value that I'm going to provide to just give him that 40,000. Now, you might turn around and say, well, but that's what they want, just like the house, that's what they want. And yes, that could absolutely be the case, but you get to choose. You get to choose who you work with. And I think that's an important lesson for most people when they're actually out there prospecting, is that you don't have to take everybody. You get to choose. So that's two. So you've got the first bit is you've got the basics of what is a good prospect or a good client, really. They're easy to deal with. They pay on time. They do things ideally along the way that you would like to do it, and they're happy with your work. There's a big one, actually. They appreciate the hard work that you do for them. That's one of the golden pieces of having a good client. All right, so that's that one. Number two is that they have a problem they identify they want solved. You can actually solve the problem, and they can afford it. All right, so it's not difficult. That's the perfect world. From time to time, there'll be people who really have to push to afford the thing that you've got. But most of the time, you want to make it easy to deal with these people. So you want to work with a market who can afford what you've got, right? So they're the two big categories. Then we go on to the preferences, the third one. And there's actually four. So the third one's really about criteria. What is the evidence for number two? So what's the evidence before you speak to these people that they have a problem, that they want it solved, that they can afford what you've got? How can you work that out in your market? If you can do that, it'll save you so much time. Now, to give you an example of how that works so that you're not lost, because that's starting to sound a little complex. In the old days when I used to do a lot of advertising, we would look for prospects in places where they were already advertising. So, for instance, we would go to the Yellow Pages and we would look at who is actually paying for premium listings, because you can tell which one's a premium listing and which one's not. Which meant that if they were getting a premium listing, they were spending X amount of dollars, and I think it was at least $1,500, to have that add up. Which means that they had at some point been prepared to pay that amount of money. Now, they might not feel that they're getting the value from the Yellow Pages at that time or whatever it might be, but there was an action they had taken that proved that they are a good opportunity to be speaking to because they are already advertising. So if we can present an offer that's got a better return on investment, that's easier to use, that actually has additional benefits to their business, then they're likely to say yes. Now, they might be able to add it on top of the Yellow Pages, or they might shift from the Yellow Pages to us. All right. So, but that was a trigger for us to know, is this person someone we should be speaking to? And it allowed us to take, let's say, a list of leads, people who we think could use what we've got, and actually change it to a list of prospects, which is people that we believe should use what we've got. And so could is like, we're just having a guess. We're thinking that this might be a thing. And then you do some investigation and then you go, yes, this is a thing, or we're pretty sure it's a thing, so we should be speaking to these people. And by speaking to those people, that's how we can confirm 100%, obviously, that they're in the right ballpark, and we do that through triage and a bunch of other things. And conversational-based selling, which is asking very good questions, to make sure that we understand where they're at. And there's a whole piece behind that. And I think I talked about it in a previous podcast called Confident Selling, which was only a few podcasts ago. So that's how we can actually work out if it's time to actually make a sale. But we still want to keep this short list of good prospects, because they might not be right for us right now, but in 3 months' time they might be prime. And so we want to put them somewhere where we can engage with them over time. I like to call that thing the barrel. And we want to be able to do follow-up with them in some form of conversational follow-up. So calling them up, having them join our events, being part of a group, whatever it might be that actually keeps them engaged with us over time. Some people would say, all right, well, we can create email funnels, or we can create newsletters and things like that. They used to work a little bit more than they do these days. I think we've sort of come full circle where we used to actually have human conversations, and then we tried to digitize everything and move to this automation space. Then we got so much automation comes through that while it still does work, there's still definite space for email marketing. I think it's a great tool. Coming back to the conversational selling is definitely where it's at. If you're selling anything, I think over $1,000, you want to be having a conversation with somebody, because a lot of the time people aren't going to buy something sight unseen without having a bit of know, like, and trust with the person they're buying it from when it is at that price point over $1,000. And so that's the conversational selling is how you go about building a lot of that know, like, and trust, even if you've never met anyone before, because you can come in and you can build rapport and you can get to know them a little bit, and they don't have to be best buddies, best friends, or anything like that. But they go, all right, this person I can work with. All right, that's the sort of the base of know, like, and trust. Okay, so coming back to the prospects though, so we started. We've got like, all right, we've got our baseline of things that yes they can pay, yes they're in fact they pay all the time. They're easy to deal with, good stuff. We've got the yes we can help them, yes they can use what we've got, yes they can afford it. We've got what are the triggers that let us know that stuff beforehand. Now there might be multiple triggers, so you might, so number one, you might go, all right, well, it's more likely in this industry, let's say the construction industry, whatever it is that you're selling, it's more likely in the construction industry that they will value the thing that I'm selling because it's a prerequisite or something, like it's a compliance issue. And that's what happens obviously for accountants. Accountants are a valuable part of the business relationship because whether it be tax, whether it be payroll, and all the other things that go with running a business, there's compliance issues around it. So there's certain rules, things you have to do. So that might be one of the triggers. But you need to decide what that is. And then finally, sort of the fourth category is more around your personal preferences, the types of people that you like working with. Now, there's the old adage of like attracts like. And if you tend to hang around people who like the same sort of things as you. Now, it's a bit stereotypical, and it might not be 100% true. You might be a very, very quiet person, and you love hanging around very, very boisterous, loud people. But whatever it is for you, you get to choose that type of person that you like to work with. Now, usually, if you think about the values that people have, usually friends have a values alignment. So let's say, maybe one of their values is family. All right, well, people who have family as a value together will often be, they'll come together and hunt in packs, so to speak. People who go, all right, well, money is very important to me. They'll hang around with people where money is very important to them, okay? Because if they've got a value misalignment, then they're not going to stay friends with those people very, very long. Okay, so one of the things that you can do is look at your own values. Look at the things that you love. Look at the things that you love to hate. And hate is a funny old word. People don't like the word hate. They wouldn't dare say I hate the word hate because that'd be too strong. But I like using the word hate in that it's passionate. It actually has a voice. But when I say love to hate, I mean like what are the things you like throwing stones at? What are the things that get under your skin that you comment on? For me, it's apathy in the workplace. Like I can't work with a business that has apathy throughout the business, whereas like people don't care, the employees don't really have no thoughtfulness regarding the business, and in fact, the business owner doesn't care that they don't care. That's horrible for me. But for you, that might be fantastic. You've got to decide what are the things that you love. So I love passionate businesses. I love my children, my families, things like that. And so the other people who have those same sort of values in their personal life are usually people that I will engage with as well. I love blacksmithing and things like that. Now, I talk about that sort of stuff all the time. Is that a value? Well, I think there's a value that underlines it, that I think that people need to be multidimensional. I think people can't just be about their work. I think people can't just be about their one value. Maybe that's family or something else. They need, I like hanging around people with depth. I like hanging around people that have got different aspects to them. And I guess that the blacksmithing side of things shows a little bit of that. It's funny, I speak to let's say I go to a networking function. If I speak to any man over, let's say, the age of 50, and I say something along the lines of, what do you do when you're not here? There'll be like cars, renovations, putting together vintage things, whether it be furniture or whether it be vehicles or like motorcycles. There'll be people who are into woodwork, and I just bring up that I'm into blacksmithing, and suddenly we're connected. We're having a conversation about things that we're passionate about that are not just about work. And I think working with people who have a value alignment to the things that you care about enables you to not waste energy. If you're working with people who, where their values are completely different from yours, they like things that have got nothing to that you don't like. They like stuff that you don't like, or they hate stuff that you like. Right? That situation steals your energy. And so you do not want clients who are going to steal your energy, because I've said it 100 times already that energy is all you've got in business. So if you're the founder, the director, the driver in that business, the energy you've spent in the past is the money, the team, the resources you now have. The energy you're going to spend in the future is the time that you've got, and that's like your most valuable commodity. So where are you going to spend that energy, and how are you going to recharge yourself? Well, you're not going to recharge yourself with people who have a misalignment to you. So working through the prospecting piece, you really need to get clear about who these prospects are. So number one, are they people who are easy to deal with, that pay on time, that appreciate the style and the work that you do? Okay, the style of the work you do even. Column number two, do they fit into an area of solution you provide? So do they have problems you can solve? Do they have problems that they want solved? Right? So the problem that you can solve, do they want it solved? Can they afford what you've got? Is there a fair value exchange there? Can they perceive the value in what you've got? Column three, what are the criteria for that? Like, how do you know that those things are true about those people beforehand? Are there specific industries where it's more likely to be the case than others? Are there certain activities that they're doing that show that they would be more likely to use your service? And so that allows you to create a short list. And then finally, is there a value alignment with that type of person so that it's fun and engaging and joyful to work with them? This is it sounds quite big actually when I put it out like this, but there needs to be some thought that goes into the type of people that you work with. People put a lot of research into buying a house. They put a lot of time into deciding whether they actually want to live with someone or work with someone. Not live with someone or work with someone. Where they sort of like get into a relationship with someone, so move in with someone or get married to someone. There's a lot involved in that. But people don't even put a split second of thought into the people they're going to work with, the prospects that they want to spend their time attracting. And by doing that, two things can happen. One's worse than the other. But let's say number one, you spend all your energy chasing after people who, when you get them, you go, I don't want to deal with them, right? That's one. So you're attracting the wrong type of people. And number two is that you just say yes to the wrong sort of people, which means that you're actually trapped in a business that you hate. And that doesn't sound good at all. So I guess the process off the back of today is to go, all right, if I want to have more consistent leads, if I find myself in a space where I've got a roller coaster ride of leads, I'm wasting energy dealing with them, I'm not having enough leads because I'm not attracting people to me, well, defining what an ideal client looks like, and then defining how I can identify them out in the real world, and what sort of person do I actually want to be dealing with. Defining that stuff up front will give you clarity. It'll give you some focus into where you're going to be spending that energy, so you're not just wasting it. And because then wasting your energy is where burnout lies. We do not want you to burn out. And I'm seeing more and more of that happen, obviously, because of the changing face of business at the moment. The environment is shifting all the time. And so you've got to be really careful where you're putting your energy. And I think defining your ideal client and your ideal prospect, as in the person I should be speaking to see if we can help them, is going to be a massive step on the way to helping you really get clear on where you should be spending your time. But secondly, getting consistent in those really high quality leads. Now, my name is Russell Pearson. If you haven't heard of these podcasts before, I do all sorts of different things, and you can join myself and a whole bunch of people over at a fantastic community that we've got on Facebook called the Future Proof Business Group. You can look to join us there. We have conversations about future-proofing our business, where to spend our energy, how to adapt and thrive really in this ever-changing business environment we find ourselves in. And I have a number of cool programs that I run for passionate yet frustrated business owners who are looking for a competitive edge. And those things are everything from my Next 60K program, which is just helping people add an extra $60,000 to their bottom line. That's a nice, easy one. And then there's also the Forge, which is a great program. This is my baby. I love the Forge because we come together each week. We get really, really clear about how do we solve the puzzle that is our business. And these people who join me in the Forge are kicking goals every single week, and it is a joy to work with them. And it's a joy to work with them because I've actually done the work in the prospecting. I know these are the type of people that I want to be working with. So I didn't just say yes to everybody. So hopefully you can be doing the same sort of thing in your business. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Make sure to visit russellpearson.com for more podcast episodes, videos, and more. russellpearson.com.